This episode is proudly supported by Westholme Australian Wagyu. Whether you're a chef or just love going to restaurants, you know the best ingredients are everything, especially when it comes to beef. Westholme, based in Queensland and the Northern Territory, Australia, is working with the land to create nature-led Australian Wagyu. They steward 16 million acres of rangeland, guided by the natural ecosystem where cattle graze and forage on native grasses for the first few years of their lives. The result is high-quality Wagyu beef that reflects the terroir of Northern Australia. Westholme believe that when nature leads, flavour follows. Learn more at westholme.com.
Cooking in general gets me excited. I love the industry, and I know it takes it's been taking a lot of heat lately, but it's I love this industry, and I just wish people would see it a bit more through our eyes than their own.
This is the Deep in the Weeds podcast. I'm Anthony Huckstep. Restaurant groups have really started to feature prominently in the industry, and more are having a major influence on the culinary offering of major cities. What does the modern restaurant group look like, and what does it take to run them? Elliot Pinn is the executive chef of restaurants and bars at Sofitel Wentworth in Sydney. Elliot, how are you?
Good, thanks. Huck, thanks for having me.
It's good to get you on the show. You've got a pretty big role in a group that's really on the move at the moment. How are things at the moment?
Yeah, good. We're just sort of gearing up for opening here at Sofitel. So we've got sort of 2 restaurants, 2 bars. That also comes with sort of room service and breakfast buffets and amenities and all that kind of thing. So yeah, it's a bit of work to go into that. But no, we're really excited. We sort of launch Tilda, one of our first restaurants, next week, and then Deltaroo, the sort of Vietnamese French, that's going live from sort of the second week of October. So ready to go.
Amazing. Well, I want to get into those sort of venues and find out all about them shortly. Your role has just changed recently. You were group executive, Housemade Hospitality. Tell us a little bit about the group and sort of what's going on with it.
Yeah, so I came on board 2021, sort of just after sort of COVID, the first round of COVID. I was just moved from Melbourne, and I came on board for Hinchcliffe House. So there's a couple of venues inside Hinchcliffe, Grana, Lana being the 2 restaurants, Apollonia being the bar, and the event space on level 2. Obviously the restaurant's grown quite quickly, so my role's kind of I came on as head chef of both restaurants at the start, and then sort of throughout those few months to a year, we sort of progressed really quickly. Got head chefs for both venues, and I sort of moved into the role of the building head chef, and then we've opened a few venues since. So my role's kind of been just right hand to Stephen Seacole, the culinary director, and just kind of helped jump in all the kitchens and sort of get them open and get the menu done and the teams right, and then just sort of go on to the next one, and then also obviously oversee the rest of the venues and help the heads and the execs or whatever they need and jump in service. So it's been a really eye-opening role, that's for sure.
The growth of the group has been staggering in the last couple of years. Give us a sense of the scale of it all. Like, how many staff are we talking about? How many restaurants is it at the moment?
So I think on the books at the moment, not including the ones that are coming out, there's 11, going from sort of restaurants and bars to we've got a pub as well called the Carrington in Surrey Hills. There's I can go through them all, but there's a few there. And then this year we've got obviously the Sofitel project, and there's another project in Surrey Hills which opens start of November. So as far as staff, I mean, I couldn't put a number on it now, but last I think there was 400. That was before Sofitel, and then Sofitel's I think. I can't remember off the top of my head. Maybe it's like 300 to 350 for everyone that's going to be here. And yeah, so it's growing pretty quickly. But yeah, really exciting to be a part of a group that's been this progressive this quickly. Because as I said, it's been really eye opening and getting to sort of do different styles of food, and been really big learning curve for me. Obviously professionally, but It's been incredible. Yep.
You mentioned that you joined the group as head chef really early on with Hinchcliffe House, but what's it been like sort of managing multiple people, multiple venues? What sort of impact has it had on your approach to hospitality and the way you see the operations of a kitchen?
I mean, as I said, it's been a really eye-opening experience for me because not only do I have to be, I still love being in the kitchen. I'm not really an office guy, but I've sort of had to train myself to sort of make sure I've got some hours in the morning before service to sit down and get what I need to get done, what I need to do, and then get in the kitchens. But I mean, for me, it's been great to be able to bounce between the kitchens and talk to different people and be cooking a ton of different food. It's been unreal. As far as what it's done for me, I just think it's just opened my eyes a lot more. Working in kitchens across Australia and New Zealand, it's been one kitchen at a time, whereas this you're sort of juggling multiple. So just an awesome experience. Yeah, it's been unreal.
The change in your role is because of the scale of the Sofitel Wentworth project. Tell us about the beginnings of that and creating the different venues that you'll have in that space. How do you come up with the right sort of idea for the different spaces?
I mean, the concepts usually get set by the directors, and then I just sort of come in to help implement those concepts. So they kind of already had an idea for what they wanted to do for Tilda. Tilda is the downstairs modern Australian restaurant, and then upstairs is Delta, the Vietnamese French. So that they've sort of set the concepts, and then I come in with Steve, the culinary director, and just help sort of get those off the ground, and help with menu concept and OS&E and what plates, everything going on, and how does it feel in the dining room and all that kind of thing. So for this one, this was sort of I came just before they started rebuilding in January. I just came along, and that's the first actually time I walked through because we'd been so busy last year with opening. Promenade opened last year in February. Then we opened Easy Tiger in October, and then a couple of weeks later we opened Martinez. So it was a pretty hectic year last year, and I hadn't really heard too much. I knew it was coming, but I hadn't really been a part of the planning. And then sort of when I came in January, I kind of said, well, we'd been sort of interviewing for the role, and I kind of stuck my hand up and said, well, if no one's going to take it, I'll give it a crack, so I can just focus on this. So it's been it's a monster project, but we're just I'm just itching to get open. It's obviously hard with this size build, gets pushed. At the moment we're getting daily updates of when things are moving. We're going to open this day and that day, but I'm just really itching to get everything open and get moving. We've got a really good team in play. I'm really excited for the concepts, and I think it'll be a really cracking one that's all moving. Really excited.
I'm really interested in sort of your access to produce and how that works across the group. Does sort of purchasing of different produce and dealing with different operators, does that affect sort of your creativity, or is it very much separate depending on the venue?
Some things, yes, we do have group pricing for, but not all. And also, like our execs are quite different in what they use and the style of food they use. But we do have, like Margaret Lamb's a good one. I've been using Margaret Lamb at Grana for pretty much since we opened, and the top of Hinchcliffe House is a golden lamb. So, we do, and it used to be a sheep shearing shed back in the day. So, there's a bit of a story there. But as far as that, some of the group pricing on vegetables and produce, absolutely it works. But now I find everyone's a lot more aware of, and as you said in your intro, like groups are becoming quite prominent in Australia. Restaurant groups. So it's definitely attractive because now obviously everyone's so strapped with, what they're purchasing and the quality of what they're purchasing. And, you obviously you don't want to blow the price out on any menus, because then people aren't going to come. So you sort of have to find that happy medium of what people are willing to pay versus how much you're willing to pay. It's definitely a tight line to walk, but I like to think that, all of our venues are kind of in that a really good category, whereas people aren't feeling too offended to come out and eat. So
I know you mentioned that you're very excited for these venues to open. Tell us a little bit about the food offering. Is there sort of a dish or two with each one that you've sort of nailed already that you could sort of share that gives us an idea of what to expect?
Yeah, for sure. So Tilda is level 2, so it's pretty much on the base level. So it's part of the lobby, so they wanted that kind of lobby, busy kind of a feel once you're walking through the doors at Sofitel. So there's a bar on the right, Bar Tilda, and then you sort of head to Tilda, and it's kind of just opposite the check-in. So it feels quite busy down there already because they've already opened the lobby. But it doesn't feel like you're sitting in a lobby, you know what I mean? But the style of food is sort of modern Australian. I don't like the word brasserie, but we're trying to highlight sort of as much fish as possible in this menu. We've got a beautiful charcoal oven. So we're trying to sort of really, there's a lot of sort of steakhouses around where we are. So we're trying to sort of highlight the seafood aspect. I know everyone on these trips does it, but we're just trying to sort of put our own spin on it. As far as things that we're excited about on the menu with, obviously seafood's a massive one, but we've got a sort of bread and butter service that we're doing tableside. Again, trying to highlight Australian produce. I know everyone says that, but we're really trying to push it this time. So we've got some AP sourdough with some sort of butter that gets sort of whipped, plated for you tableside with a few dips and a few different bits and pieces. So I can't explain it too much because it's not open yet, but it'll be coming down the line. And then Delta Roux, so Vietnamese French. We're going to sort of our spin on some Vietnamese dishes, and there's a lot of places that do Southeast Asian, and they sort of take from a whole bunch of different. They take from everywhere, whereas we're trying to really just focus on as much as we can anyway, on sort of doing Vietnamese with a sort of touch of French. So we have got these beautiful trolleys made, so we're going to be doing some really cool a tableside banh mi. So I'm really excited about that. We've just received the trolleys, so it'll be sort of our spin on a banh mi. So it'll just be sort of a small slice with a little broth. So it's I'm really, really excited for people to see that. That's for sure.
With the proliferation of groups and that are really making a voice in the big cities, do you sort of feel an obligation in regards to the voice of food in the city? And, with so many venues, is that something that's talked about in the group?
Being in the city, 100%. And I still feel the pressure of being in the city, that's for sure. You're working at, across from these venues that you've, looked up to and you've eaten at multiple times. It's still, for me, I used to live in Sydney. I used to live in Sydney sort of 10 years ago. And then coming back now and doing this, it's just, it's been unreal. Where, and you're just around the corner from, again, places you've looked up to and eaten at a bunch of times. It's definitely scary, but I love the challenge, and I think moving forward, it's the city was this side of the city wasn't very busy for a while, so it's been good to sort of come back and seeing the other side of it, because it's especially down where sort of Hinchcliffe House was, there wasn't much there when we opened, and now you've got sort of a bit of a precinct of restaurants, which is just fantastic. Take
us back to when you were young. Whereabouts did you grow up, and what sort of role did food play?
So I'm born and raised in Christchurch, so South Island, New Zealand. I started in kitchens when I was 16, so I was just washing dishes for my cousin at the time, he's a really good chef, and I'm still friends with to this day. So he got me sort of a role washing dishes, and kind of from there, I never looked back. I loved the adrenaline of the kitchen, and it sort of really excited me, and it's just something I could see myself doing long term. I was didn't really know what I wanted to do, sort of in my teenage years. I was kind of open to see what happened, but as soon as I started, I was at the place called the George Hotel in Christchurch. They sort of had 2 restaurants, and a lot of the chefs there had been sort of competing. They've been doing cooking competitions. It was kind of like the place in Christchurch to work. So I was hooked as soon as I got in there, and that's I started competing at a young age as well, and I absolutely loved it. So as soon as I stepped foot in there, I knew this is what I was going to do. So,
what was food like then in Christchurch? Give us a sense of sort of did you really tap into the sort of local New Zealand produce?
Yes, I think we did, but I don't think it was as prominent as it was now. New Zealand wasn't everything wasn't available as it is now. It was quite hard to get certain products. A lot of things were imported. A lot of things were imported, especially sort of for our fine dining restaurants. I just remember so much of the menu was imported, and a lot of the dishes obviously just been inspired by what was going on overseas. That was big when, spherification was massive and people were doing foams and, that kind of thing. So I don't think we were too far behind Australia back then. Everyone was like, oh, New Zealand's up and coming, but the food coming out of New Zealand now, like there's some really good cooks and some really good restaurants. I'm always hearing about a new one and having a look online. And the last 10 years, I think, in New Zealand has just been, I've been in Australia for 13 now, but the last 10 years in New Zealand, I just think it's blown up. It's just been awesome to see all these new chefs and new restaurants, and people get them now. In Australia, people are excited for new restaurants, where in New Zealand it was a bit harder to break into a market if you hadn't been there for a while. People struggled to sort of get onto new places. And again, pricing was a big one in New Zealand. People, only a certain amount of people came out to eat. So it's been really good to see, that's for sure.
In the early years, what were the really sort of important venues and people that you worked with?
Yeah. As I said, I worked with the George. My exec chef, Andrew Brown, was sort of my main mentor for the first couple of years of my career for my apprenticeship. So I did everything from breakfast to lunch to dinner there, and sort of learnt the basics. Upstairs was a restaurant called Pescator, and the chef Rayon Hobson, I'm still good friends to this day. He sort of took me under his wing, and he was very modern and very forward thinking, so I definitely learned a lot from him. And then moving over onto Australia, I came over, and that was where I met Steve at Flying Fish, and he's been a big sort of part of my life, for not only Flying Fish, but obviously in the last sort of 3 years. And after Flying Fish, I told you about my cousin Guy. Guy Stanaway, I worked with him to open Jackalope down on the Mornington Peninsula, and he's been a big figure in my life as well. So sort of those four stick out to me as sort of, people that I, look up to and have mentored me to where I am today, that's for sure.
Do you have any stories of what it was like working with Stephen Seckold early on, like prior to this sort of the new group that you're in?
Yeah. It was just at the time he was sort of my age now. So, but we were in Piermont, and sort of we were always busy, but it was just for me, as far as Steve, he just knew so much about seafood, whereas in New Zealand, I was, obviously seafood's a big thing, but I hadn't really seen a lot of the seafood that was coming through the door at Flying Fish. I just remember in December, you go to all the Christmas parties and all the events. I just remember the seafood coming through the door, and it'd be, thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars of seafood every day, and we'd just go through all of it, cleaning like 10 kilos of calamari, and it'd be gone before dinner, like cleaning 20, breaking down and 20 kilos of barra, and it'd be gone in the day. Like it was just, it was such a busy restaurant, and just the amount of seafood coming through was just, again, a lot of stuff I hadn't seen, and it was just, guy to Christchurch, a small town coming to the big city. It was cool to see, that's for sure.
Tell us about your time in Melbourne. Do you have any stories of some influences there?
Yeah, Jackalope was. I was working in Sydney at the time at Sepia, and I kind of got this offer to go and open this boutique hotel, and they wanted to do sort of two upscale venues, and I was like, let's do it. So I moved to the Peninsula. We did sort of one called Rehe, which was overlooking the vineyard, and it was wood fire, and it was like long communal tables, and we wanted to do a sort of really fun sharing menu, and that kicked off, which is great. And then we had a fine diner as well, or set course diner called Do Do Do, and that was sort of 5 and 8 course at the time, and it's changed a bit. But those restaurants are still kicking, and still both got hats, which is great. But as far as stories, it was that to me was the best part about living on the peninsula was the produce. And I know people say this a lot, but we were so close to the produce on the peninsula. Down you could literally drive to work and pick up things on the way to work. You'd go and see a lady about horseradish, and you go and pick up apples from her, and it was just, you were so connected. And unfortunately in Sydney, because you're so far away from everything, you don't have that same connection. But that was definitely a highlight for me on the peninsula. It was just it was unreal, and they were excited that you were using their produce, and they come in and they were excited, and they wanted to talk to you, and they wanted to train you about it, and they wanted you to come to their farms, and they wanted you to meet their kids. It was just really nice. That part of it I really liked. Just a great experience on the peninsula. I did sort of 3 years down there, and that was enough for me. I think a bit later on in life I would have liked to have gone down there and chilled, but I was kind of 20, 26, 27 when I moved there. So it was good to come back into the city. So
you very briefly mentioned sepia before moving down to Melbourne. We're yet to twist Martin Ben's arm to get him on the show, but his influence is quite incredible. Take us into the kitchens of sepia. Do you have any stories of that time?
Yeah, I was there for sort of just under a year, just doing pastry section. But yeah, I mean, that was at the time they'd just been rated sort of 85th in the world, I think it was. But yeah, just his food was just incredible at the time. I definitely learned a lot, especially I just come from doing a pastry. I left Flying Fish doing pastry, and I wanted to sort of keep going. So I jumped in there as a pastry chef, and yeah, his food was just the best I'd seen in Sydney, Australia. And just the kitchen was super intense, but it was definitely a great experience. Don't regret it whatsoever.
Was there anything that you took from your time in that kitchen with Martin Ben?
Probably, I mean, the main one for me was just his creativity and the way he plated things. I just was just so far forward than anyone else, I thought. He was he would sort of plate up dishes beside me, and I'm like, just watching him plate was just was a big deal for me at the time. So, but yeah, he was great. Yeah.
Tell us about how the Hinchcliffe House gig came about for you.
Well, at the time, I actually after I left Jackalope, I opened a wine bar in Brunswick called Rascal, and we're on Sydney Road. We're open for about 6 months until COVID hit. Then we sort of flipped into a bottle shop, and we were doing takeaway meals and selling bottles of wine. My partners had a few other businesses, so we're like grabbing all their stock and selling it. And sort of after, with all the COVID lockdowns, and look, it was pretty hectic in Melbourne. It's just non-stop opening and closing. And a lot of the chefs I had to sort of, they'd already gone back, back to New South Wales, or they had to go and do this. So I was doing a lot of it by myself in the kitchen. And honestly, by the end of COVID, I was like, I'm done with this. I'll hire someone. I was pretty, everyone went through stuff in COVID, but I was ready for a change, and I was ready to get back to something a bit bigger. So I just still kept my part, and then obviously just been talking to Steve through lockdown, and he said he had opportunity. I said, let's do it, because I'm a big believer in opportunity, and these big ones come along, and people shy away from them, but I get excited, and I feel like these big opportunities sort of make you the chef you are today if you take them. So I took the role, and sort of just made the sous chef the head chef at Rascal, and just thought I'd take a big risk and come in here and do it. So yeah, it's been good. It's paid off.
It's a big difference to sort of a wine bar in Rascal to a group, and then a role with so many staff. What sort of advice would you have for someone that might be stepping into a bigger role and having a bigger obligation like that with multiple venues and multiple staff?
I'll just say be open to it. Be open to everything. And I know what I would have done different now if I opened Rascal now, because I've seen so much. But I think at that time I was sort of I had one focus, and this is the wine bar I wanted to do. And if you had an opinion, I didn't take it on board. Whereas now, like, I've learned a lot more about sort of taking on feedback and taking on other people's opinions. Obviously not too much, but enough that I understand where they're coming from. I just found that was the big one for me, was just sort of getting out of my own head. When you're young, you think you've got a vision of the place you want to open, and other people have got good advice too. So just being open and listening to people is a big one for me. and just obviously just trying to leave those old habits behind. No one wants to work in those kitchens anymore where people are yelling and screaming. And obviously sometimes it happens, and I'm not going to say I haven't been the best at times, but like nobody wants it anymore, and people want to work in good kitchens with a good culture. And I think that's what we've tried our best to do at Housemade, is really try and build culture in kitchens. Again, I know everybody says it, but we've really tried to push that narrative.
Tell us a little bit about your approach with that. I mean, there's been a big cultural change within kitchens, but as you say, it is sort of a cliche a little bit. But what's some of the things that you do to get the best out of your staff and create great culture?
I just think it's about being a bit more personable, sort of pulling people aside and telling them rather than just trying to call them out in front of a lot of people is probably the first thing I'd say. Again, I'm not saying I've ever been perfect, but again, the times are changing, and you've got to adjust, or you just get left behind. But I mean, as far as I know for a fact with Housemade, with sort of shifter parties and under, they're all on sort of casual contracts, so they get paid for every hour they do. So as back in the day when you were CDP, you were doing 55, 60 hours plus, or depending where you're working. But it's not like that anymore. So at least now with, I know a lot of groups do the same, but sort of CDPs, demis and commies, they're all sort of paid by the hours. It's all above board. So everything they're working, they're getting paid for. And obviously if they're not doing 55, 60 hours, you're getting a better chef and you're getting more out of them anyway. So that's a big adjustment, that's for sure.
So you're on the cusp of opening Tilda and Bar Tilda, but Deltaroo and Wentworth Bar is sort of later in the year. Can you tell us, or give us a sneak peek on what they might be?
Yeah, so it's actually, they were supposed to be split quite split apart, but they're actually going to open sort of a couple of weeks beside each other. So Deltaroo, Vietnamese French. It's the Wentworth Bar's obviously got a lot of history, so they've redone the whole thing and put a beautiful roof on it. And it's looking incredible. So we're excited to get that open. Deltaroo, Vietnamese French. We're sort of leaning more towards those lighter Vietnamese dishes, which we're really excited about. It's going to be heavy sort of shared menus and a lot of fun up there. So it's definitely going to be a cool one for this side of Sydney.
Well, you're doing some amazing things there, and it sounds like there's plenty more in the works as well. What do you love about what you do?
I just love the drive, to be honest. It's just the pressure and the excitement of opening venues and filling with people, and cooking is just cooking in general gets me excited. I love the industry, and I know it takes it's been taking a lot of heat lately, but it's I love this industry, and like I just wish people would see it a bit more through our eyes than their own. That's for sure. But I think good things are coming in hospital, especially in Sydney. So it's I think if we all just sort of band together to keep it all positive, it's going to be better for everyone.
Well, Elliot, very much looking forward to these openings and what you do from here on. We've loved having you on Deep in the Weeds today. Please keep in touch and we'll catch up again soon.
Mate, thanks a lot. Really good to talk to you. Cheers. Talk soon. Bye.
This is the Deep in the Weeds podcast. I'm Anthony Huckstep. Stay tuned as we take a deep dive into the lives of the incredible people who ply their trade in the food and hospitality sector. Special thanks to executive producer Rob Locke for making this all happen. Follow us on Instagram at Deep in the Weeds Podcast, or email us at podcast@deepintheweeds.com.au.